you could argue your former club Arsenal certainly have been hit in a big way with injury at this particular point in the proceedings, and we're not even into October yet. Tomorrow it's a talkSPORT exclusive, Martin. Bournemouth host Arsenal, but at the moment, I mean, we know struggling with injury, Rice, Trossard, Saka, Martinelli. Does this contribute to it arguably being a less assured start to the season for Arsenal than many might have thought they would have?
I think what you saw at the weekend was when certain people come out of the team. I think Declan Rice coming out of the team was made Arsenal in midfield nowhere near as strong as it was, and it looked quite loose in that midfield. I thought Arsenal did very well in the first half, and looked really strong. I thought but the goals obviously conceded quickly after they scored was a disappointment. People saying it was they were celebrating too much. I think this game was there's a lot on this game now, Jim.
Yeah,
there's a lot of freshness, a lot of newness about Arsenal. I think Martinelli being out is a big loss, and one by one they're losing players. Saliba talking about he could be missing from the weekend, but every team, every club has this, Jim. You have to cope. Look at Man City. They've been without Grealish and Silva for large periods so far, without Stones, De Bruyne, and they find a way to keep winning, which is Alvarez has been magnificent in that role. So Arsenal have to match that, have to do the same. You have to find people, Tomiyasu coming in midweek. Brentford was a good win for them in the Cup. Tomiyasu now coming in to play central defence. So you've got to find those players, they've got to stand up. And the squad has to prove that it's good enough. But when the squad players came on, Jorginho came on, makes a mistake for that second. I would suggest he's rusty. He's a senior player, but the ball should have been released, shouldn't it? He should have got rid of it, should have passed it. And then Arsenal concede again. So it's that, it's getting the right balance. But I think Declan Rice showed when he came off the pitch how much he was
You see, last season, Martin, Arsenal probably weren't expected to be serious title contenders, and led the way for so long. Is that a tag that can sit heavily on a side? Because they are regarded as title contenders big time this season.
You go from game to game, Jim. It's like you're looking at that. Obviously, in peripheral vision, you can see that that's what you want to do. You want to stay up there. You want to be going after Man City, but you concentrate on your immediate opponent. That's what you need to do. Arsenal in that first half could have blew Spurs away. If you ask the Spurs players what's been the most difficult game of the season, they'll tell you it's the Arsenal game, without doubt. Yes, they come out with it with a lot of credit, but we also know that Arsenal's still a very good team, Jim. But it's going to the extra step. It's scoring the necessary goals. It's getting the right partnerships. And it's whether or not the squad is actually strong enough. Because really at the end of last season, I don't think the squad was strong enough. I think the 11 that played the game, but as soon as Saliba came out of the team, they didn't look right at the back. Now, if he's not available this weekend, I'd like to think Tomiyasu steps in and does a better job in that role. Okay,
Simon, I'll get involved with you in this as well, because I want you to give me your view of it, but I'll put it to Martin first. Gary Neville, Jamie Carragher. Neville, last week, probably you heard him, Martin, after Saka put Arsenal 2-1 up, he felt that Arsenal's celebrations were too much.
Who said that?
Gary Neville. That they caught themselves in a trap thinking that the game was won.
I thought he was celebrating actually within the commentary. I thought it was the job of the co-commentator to leave that to the commentator to do the goal and not actually sound like you're celebrating when Arsenal concede. But that's just me. You thought Gary
Neville was celebrating when Arsenal conceded?
It was bordering on celebration. Yeah.
What about Carragher? He's criticised Arsenal for being too intense emotionally this early in the season.
I think he's rolled that one out once already. He's just come back with it again.
He says, I thought it was like the Oscars. When someone loses the Oscar, they start... Oh, this was on Aaron Ramsdale, clapping David Raya. I thought it was like the Oscars. When someone loses the Oscar, they start clapping and smiling for the other person. I was laughing when I saw it. He's absolutely devastated with that, really. On that specific moment, on
He's
Ramsdale...
just saying, is he saying that just for a cheap laugh, Carragher? I mean, I take a totally different view on that. And I understand why Aaron Ramsdale's father he tried to come to the defence of his son, because basically he's saying, isn't he, that him clapping Raya's fantastic save, by the way, that's just done for show. That's just done for show. He's doing that for show. He doesn't mean that. He's a phony. So he's saying that Aaron Ramsdale's a phony, and I don't believe he is. I believe that he's the bigger man, and I think Carragher there, he's in a position of high importance, the job he has. And I feel that he's saying that for a cheap laugh. Because I think Ramsdale, what he's done is bought into that fantastically well. He's getting behind the manager of the team. He's supporting his team and the goal. He's in a very difficult situation. Every time his name is mentioned, there's a camera on him. Everywhere, every movement, every motion, every time their goalkeeper makes a save. And I think he was supporting what was an outstanding save. Then to hear that from what is supposed to be a respected pundit, I think takes it too far.
Well, it was interesting because Ramsdale's father, Nick Ramsdale, pushed back on what Carragher was suggesting. But her own Danny Murphy said this.
Do you know what's too many people's mums and dads coming out on social media? What the hell is going on in the world?
He's
not 12.
But what's wrong with that?
He's not 12.
He's defending his son.
He's a big boy, Ramsdale. He's a great goalkeeper.
Yeah, but Dad of Ramsdale can do what he wants.
Do you think if... Oh, come on. I thought maybe the world's gone mad. When I was playing at Liverpool with the lads, if my mum or dad... We didn't have social media, but if they did, oh, my God, I'd get absolutely annihilated.
What, defending the boy?
He's not 12. He's a man.
Yes.
He's right.
People's parents coming out, so get a grip of yourselves.
Right.
Let your boys show some resilience. He's made it to the Premier League. He's an England goalkeeper. He doesn't need his dad defending him on Twitter like some sort of schoolboy.
So you thought Danny was right there, Simon,
I think he's right about the observation about people's parents coming out and defending grown men. They don't need to do that. I understand why they might want to do it. Is it advisable? I'm in the camp with Martin. I didn't think Ramsdale was dialing that in. I think goalkeepers are a unique breed. I listened to Paddy Kenny talking to Sam Allardyce this week, talking about the very subject. And he's a goalkeeper. And he says, we've got a very different relationship than outfield players, got a very different dynamic going on. We do support one another. So I did agree with Danny.
What did you think of what Danny said there? Because he didn't hang around. He went for Ramsdale's dad, Martin.
Look, I wouldn't advise that you regularly do this, yeah, if you're a parent. But there are moments when you have to look at it, and maybe Danny hasn't seen it the way I have, but, you know, it's integrity, isn't it, really? So he's calling him a phony. You know, he's saying it's just for show. And it isn't.
That's not what Danny did. That's not what Danny did. That's what Jamie Carragher did. What Danny said is, come on now, why are these people's... You've got,
I know that, but he doesn't realise.
This week you've got Ramsdale's dad.
Danny's not looked at it the way I have. And I would like to support my son if it were that somebody had questioned him, called my son a phony, said that
he can support himself. He's a big boy.
Make-believe. That was just for show. No, it wasn't, actually. My son's... It hurts him not to play in the team. That was big of him to do that. And I just think... I do feel Ramsdale was the bigger man.
But Ramsdale can say that. He's a man. Yeah, I don't want my dad sticking up for me in the media.
It's not ideal.
My dad's bigger than your dad.
I agree with it, and I wouldn't make a habit of it. But if it happens, that's human nature. He's come running to the defence of his son, and maybe... How can we complain about that?
I thought Danny's point was right, Jim. I did. I genuinely do. I think the world's gone mad, and we've got Harry Maguire's mum coming out because she thinks people
Which side of the fence are you on?
I'm on the side of the fence where I think that Jamie Carragher's position was wrong, his observation was wrong, and I concur with your view, which is I don't quite know what Jamie's point was, and it's a little bit of a cheap laugh.
But then Danny didn't understand the gravity of how that looked, did he? Just supporting his mate, isn't he, at the end of the day? A former colleague.
He defended Carragher. But the argument then moved on, the debate then moved on to parents chipping in to grown men's well-being, right? Aaron Ramsdale is an international footballer, paid like one, played like one, playing for a big football club. If he needs to say something, either his employer will say it for him, or he'll say it. I think it makes you an object of ridicule. I think it's not, this isn't the playgrounds. This is grown professional sports. You don't have your dad come round and say, don't let him hit you, hit him back. This is the real world.
Don't make a habit of it. Don't make a habit of it.
Don't do it full stop.
Yes, ideally, but when it's done, when it's out there, and you feel, when you look at exactly what he's defended him for, then I think the father's right.
I think you're extrapolating up to something more sinister. I understand what you're doing there.
I thought he was out of order, yeah. I do feel it was out of order because it's really tough. Look, I don't want to grow this, Jim, but, Carragher maybe never sat on the bench. If he'd got out of his comfort zone and he'd come to Arsenal, and he'd come to play with our team, with Sol Campbell, with Tony Adams, myself, Steve Bold. He's sitting on the bench. He would have had to clap some of the headers and tackles that we'd done. He might have gone through the indignity of all of that. Okay, you could say he played 700 games for Liverpool and it didn't happen to him. But if it happens to you, it's a tough road. And he doesn't want it underlined by a so-called ex-professional in the way that it was. I think it was out of order. Anyway.
Okay.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.